Hi and welcome back. So in this video we're going to be continuing with our API, and we're in fact going to be getting the entire structure for our web blog. So the first thing to do is to define exactly how the application is going to be structured. So we're going to have our blogs, we're going to have our posts, and we're going to have our users. So these are the three models that we're going to need. In addition, these models are also going to use one common class, which is going to be the database class. So I'm going to create a new package here, actually sorry about that, inside the source folder of course, a new package called models. And in this models package I'm going to have the blog, the post, and the user. And then I'm going to create another package which is going to be common, and here I'm going to have the database. So the database is really going to be the same as last time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Finder and then open up the database and get that. So I've got it here. I'm going to copy that and paste it in. And I'm going to remove that. And evidently we're going to need to import PyMongo as well. So PyMongo, but I forgot exactly what the version was, so we can go and look at the current version. 3.0.3. So then we'll install that, install the requirement, and then this should work with our local database. So remember, you have to have the MongoD instance running in order for this to work. Okay, so what about the models? I'm not entirely sure what this means, by the way, just now. So if it doesn't work, then it'll be because it's missing some sort of import or something along those lines. So we'll have a look at that in a minute. Let's go into our models and create different models. So user, and also blog, and also post. So we can also get some of these from the last section. So we can get the blog, for example, from the last section. I'm just going to copy that and paste it onto the blog. And we're going to have to change some things, of course, such as the inputs. But we'll look at that in just a moment. And also I'm going to want to get the post from here. This is simply to save you time, so we don't have to go through typing it all again, really. The user does not have a model just now, and we'll work on that in a couple of videos' time. The first thing to do, however, is to realize that there are some things that we've done in our models that maybe aren't optimal. So, for example, we've got this blog model, this blog class, that has an init method, and in it we define the author, title, and description, and also an ID. This ID, it says that shadows the built-in name ID. That's not a big problem. This ID, however, is not the same ID that MongoDB gives its documents by default. So MongoDB will also give each document an ID called _ID, like so. And in fact, when we are writing these models to the database, we are giving them an ID, and we're also giving them an _ID, which MongoDB gives by default. So we want to avoid that. We want to make sure that we are overwriting the MongoDB default ID with our ID. So what we're going to do is rename our ID to _ID. So this is what we've done here. And then self._ID down here as well. Self._ID there. Self._ID there and there. And then here. There. So you can see there are a few things that we've had to change in order to make this change. Now, if you had multiple apps, you would have to make this change in all of them for it to work. But now, because we're developing this API, all our apps are going to be able to interact with this and not have to worry about whether we're using _ID or just ID. Okay, so I think that's everything. We don't have to really worry about this one because that's simply a parameter. It's not going anywhere near the database or the object. So that's fine. That's that. And these. So I think we're good. this is now we are overriding the default MongoDB underscore ID by our own, which we're using UID4 for. Okay, and then we can go into the post and do essentially the same thing. So we're going to override that, and then self.id, I'm going to press Shift and F6, and then we can rename them to that, and then it renames them all. But obviously it won't rename the strings, so we're going to have to do that. Okay, so I think that's it. We're going to need to import database, which is no longer, oh sorry, that was not what I wanted to do. We are going to have to say src.common.database, import database, and in here as well. And here we're going to have to say src.models.post, import post. Okay. So our imports are now sorted as well, and there's one final thing that we should probably do in order to simplify our models, and this is the use of the CLS keyword. So as we know, the CLS keyword essentially stands for the class. So what this is doing is it's returning an object of type post in this case. And when we use this in the blog class, then it would return an object of type blog. However, this is quite a lot of parameters to be passing our post. And if you notice, we're saying blog underscore ID equals post data, and then inside the quotations, we're accessing the blog underscore ID field from the database. So we're getting this stuff from the database, and then we're saying blog underscore ID equals blog underscore ID, title equals title, content equals content, author equals author, date equals created date, underscore ID equals underscore ID. So we're doing something quite repetitive here. We are telling it that the blog underscore ID field of the object is the blog underscore ID field from the database. And the only one that's different is this date. And date equals created date, in fact, from the database. So the first thing we want to do before we continue is change that so that the date is the created date. So here I'm going to change that to created date. And here I'm going to change that to created date. And then I'm going to change that to created date. And I think that is all the changes we have to do. So now all of the properties are equal. One of them is the object property, and the other one is the one coming from the database. Now we can simplify all of this to asterisk asterisk post data. That does exactly the same thing. It says for each of the elements in post data, get the name of the element when it's coming from the database and say that the object element is equal to that. So basically it's doing, if I go to the post, so to the blog class, it's doing author equals blog data author, title equals blog data title. It's simply saying this author is the name of the variable in the object as well. Sorry, the name of the parameter to the constructor. So therefore, we can simplify that in order to simply decrease the complexity of our code. And I'm changing the created date there because we've changed that in the post constructor as well. Okay, so the blog also can be simplified. Self-author equals author, and then title, description, and underscore ID. And here, when we are getting it from MongoDB, we're saying author equals blog data author, title equals blog data title, description equals blog data description, and ID equals blog data underscore ID. So we want to change that to underscore ID, and then we can get that and simplify it to asterisk blog data. And that does exactly the same thing. Okay, so now these models are simplified as best we can. Now what we're going to do in the next video is change them in order for them to be suitable for the API we're developing, as opposed to for the text-based blog entry we developed in the last section. So I'll see you in the next video.